Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. The first lawsuit's been filed in the deadly shooting on the set of Rust. Yes, Alec Baldwin is a defendant, but you may be as surprised as I was at who the plaintiff is. We'll talk to his lawyer. But first, the evidence is in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Closing arguments now set for Monday, and I think it's clear, no matter what you think about Kyle Rittenhouse, about why he was there, about why he had a weapon, that this case did not go well for the prosecution. The now 18-year-old's accused of shooting 3 people, 2 fatally in Wisconsin during the 2020 unrest after the killing of George Floyd. Heading into the trial, many presumed that there would be a conviction, but those people weren't really paying attention. And the evidence and testimony has been even worse for the prosecution than expected. I mean, the surviving victim admitted he pointed his gun at Rittenhouse before being shot. This is a self-defense case. Rittenhouse took the stand yesterday, didn't make any major errors, didn't create any gaping holes. But there's still a slim chance of a conviction, or at least a hung jury on the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, who was unarmed and shot 4 times. One of the problems for the prosecution is that their own medical examiner testified it was likely that Rosenbaum had his hand on Rittenhouse's weapon when he was shot, which bolsters the defense's self-defense argument. But, these sorts of nuances don't fit into a broader agenda. On CNN and MSNBC, many have already determined the outcome of the case, and most importantly, the cause of what they see as an injustice, that the judge is biased and that Rittenhouse is a murderer benefiting from white privilege.
Let me play one more thing that Rittenhouse said that I cannot believe a black or brown kid ever getting away with saying. Here he is talking about why he wanted an AR-15 in particular.
You didn't pick out the AR-15 for any other reason?
I thought it looked cool, but no.
You didn't pick it out because you wanted to go hunting with it, did you?
No.
You didn't pick it out because you were going to use it to protect your house, correct?
Correct.
You picked it out because it looked cool.
I thought it looked cool.
Dream with me, Paul. Could any child of color, young person of color, ever do that on a stand and get away with it?
You already know, Joy. Of course not. This is white privilege on steroids.
You have to look at the totality of this judge's actions. You have to look at the rulings that he's made. And, I said it yesterday, and I'll be extremely blunt. It appears that this judge is auditioning for the cameras and looking for his next gig on Fox News or OWN or whatever, OAN.
I don't know what get away with this meant, but then there's this. MSNBC host Tiffany Cross on Twitter raised the prospect of removing the judge presiding over Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, saying, how can this judge be removed? The nation's justice correspondent, Elie Mystal, responding, realistically, he can't be. He's elected, even if he's disciplined later by the state, which he won't be. There's nothing for it for this trial. And if he gets off, he can't be retried because of double jeopardy. So like I said 2 weeks ago, Rittenhouse is going to walk. Now, Mystal, who wrote an article before the trial predicting an acquittal based on the judge's rulings, would also say this earlier on Democracy Now!
What I know is the law, and what I know is what white people are willing to do to defend white supremacy. If you look at this judge, if you look at his pretrial motions, if you look at his pretrial decisions in this case, remember, Rittenhouse has been in and around the jail since he shot those people in Wisconsin last summer. So if you look at all the decisions that Bruce Schroeder has made, they have been heavily balanced and weighted towards Rittenhouse, towards his defense.
Here with us once again is Elie Mystal, the justice correspondent for The Nation. Also joining us is civil rights attorney Robert Patillo from the Patillo Law Group. He has been following the case closely as well. Elie, great to have you back. I want to start with you. I know you disagree with a lot of the judge's rulings, okay, but this case is going badly because of witness testimony that would have come in with any judge. How's that about the judge and race in this case?
Well, when you say the case is going badly with any judge, what's happening with this judge is that he's not allowing the prosecution to put on the case that the prosecution wants, right? The prosecution wants to talk about what Kyle Rittenhouse's state of mind was before and after the shooting. The judge won't let the prosecution make that case, literally yelling at the prosecution for trying to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse's immediate misstatements after the fact, after he shot these people, right? The judge won't let them make that case. So when you say that the case is going badly,
let's assume he let that in. Let's assume that came in. How do you overcome the fact that the medical examiner is saying that the victim had his hand on the gun, that the victim himself who survived admits he pointed the gun at Kyle Rittenhouse? These are not issues that relate to legal rulings.
Well, let's take the rest of the medical examiner's testimony, why don't we, all right? Because yes, while the medical examiner said that he thought the evidence suggested that Rosenbaum might have had his hand on the gun at the start of the shooting, he also said that Rittenhouse shot Rosenbaum in the back of the head twice. So that's how I make my case if I'm the prosecution. I say, like, whatever you're saying about the first shot, remember, you have to be able to justify all of the shots. So if you say first shot was self-defense, maybe okay, but now when the guy has his back to you and he's going away, now you shoot him twice in the head. You're asking me, how does the prosecution make the case? That's how the prosecution makes the case.
I understand how they make the case, but the problem is that the evidence isn't going in their favor. And I want to go to Robert Patillo on this, because the theory and I just said this, that the Joseph Rosenbaum situation is the most difficult one, I think, the closest case here. But the problem is that one of the explanations is that he's coming at Kyle Rittenhouse and he's falling backwards at one point, and that Kyle Rittenhouse shoots him because he is fearing for his life at that point. Regardless, when you've got a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that they have to disprove self-defense, I just don't see how you can possibly get a conviction at this point, and it's not based on the judge's rulings. Do you disagree with me, Robert?
Well, I do disagree, but I do think people are getting far too caught up in the hermeneutics of the media circus and not looking at the statutes that are actually governing the case. When you're to the question of why did he have his hand on the gun, what the prosecution should have brought out of that witness was the fact that he was trying to defend others from somebody he thought was a violent threat because they were roaming the streets at night with an AR-15. That is a very reasonable thing for someone to do, to try to disarm an armed individual with an AR-15 in the middle of the street. I believe that the prosecution made various missteps, particularly on the question of trying to sneak in evidence that had already been ruled on by doing a terrible cross-examination, giving open-ended questions, allowing narrative answers. So I think in many ways, if this is an acquittal, it will be because of the missteps by the prosecution trying to perfect things that need not exist instead of sticking to what is in the statute and what the jury instructions are going to be at the end of the trial.
Let me follow up with you, though, on that point, because you make a point about the evidence in this case. But the claim from the defense, and I think there's evidence to corroborate it based on the video, based on other witnesses, that Rosenbaum was chasing Rittenhouse. Now, for whatever reason, the notion that he's sort of like grabbing a gun to stop him from doing something, there hasn't really been anything, including the video, that suggests that that's the case.
Well, that's part of the problem with the case that the prosecution put on, because there were multiple witnesses at the scene who could have testified to what happened before they started chasing Kyle Rittenhouse. Why was he chasing Kyle Rittenhouse? Did they say, hey, there's Kyle, I don't like him, let's chase him down? Or was it that man is a threat to everyone here at this protest? He is armed with an assault rifle. He may be about to commit a mass shooting, and I am going to be a hero and try to disarm this individual and sacrifice my life for the life of the people around me. That is a more compelling argument than what the state decided to put on, and that is why the cases are going badly currently for them.
Well, but Elie Mystal, are you willing to put the blame on prosecutors the way that Joseph is? I mean, it sounds like your primary blame is on the judge in this case, and you use very incendiary terms like white supremacy, et cetera. I mean, can't you just say, A, the evidence has been a problem, B, the prosecution hasn't been great, but it's not about race?
But it is about race, because if Kyle Rittenhouse was black, he wouldn't be in this position. He wouldn't be about to walk free.
And what if the three victims in this case were all black? You know that the claim would be that Kyle Rittenhouse targeted them because of their race, right?
He would still walk away scot-free. If the victims were all black, he would still walk away scot-free. If he was a black defendant, based on the same evidence, if he was a black defendant, he wouldn't be. Dan, you and I both know that if his name was not Kyle Rittenhouse, but was Kyrie Ritter, he could not have illegally bought a gun, come across state lines, to shoot people at a MAGA protest claiming self-defense and then walk away.
Yeah.
If you think that if you think that the evidence is suggestive that Rittenhouse should walk free, then you should be more angry at the judge than I am. Because it is the judge who is out here with magatones on a cell phone with literally, Dan, did you see him today making the defense expert stand up and get applause before he took the stand? When the judge makes those kinds of rulings, it makes your case that Rittenhouse has a good case look worse.
I agree that if you want to make it sort of easy to some degree, to let this case play out, you can challenge some of the judge's rulings. You can say you should have decided other ways. Agreed. But that's not why they're losing here. They're not losing because of the judge's rulings. And that's my point. And I think it's dangerous when someone as influential as you is out there making comments that it's based on race, when I think that there's just no evidence.
But I'm telling you what the evidence is. I am telling you what the evidence is, that it's based on race.
You're speculating to me. No. I'm not speculating.
I'm not speculating about what the judge has done.
That it would be a different story.
I'm not speculating about what the judge has done. And I'm speculating about what would happen if he was black, because that is the entire experience of this country.
Understood. So, understood. Let me take a quick break. I'm going to come right back with you, Elie. I'm going to come back with Robert. I appreciate this conversation. There's a lot more. And I want to play, by the way, some more of that controversy with the judge. Take a break. Come right back.
Why would you think that that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
Continuing with our coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, that was the judge yesterday excoriating the prosecutor, which led many who want to see Kyle Rittenhouse convicted become very upset. Robert Patillo, was that a fair scolding, do you think, from the judge of the prosecutor?
It absolutely was, and I've gotten scoldings like that from judges on many occasions. The reason for that scolding is that there's a saying in law that you cannot unring a bell, as in a jury cannot unhear information after it's been presented to them. They made a pretrial order saying certain evidence could not come in. This prosecutor decided to then try to sneak that evidence in. They went into the question of what Kyle Rittenhouse said after trial, which goes into basically makes you ripe for appeal, even if you do get a conviction in the case. So the judge rightly excoriated him. The defense counsel rightly moved for a mistrial. And I think if it was a less high-profile case, that it would have been a mistrial just because of the actions of the prosecutor. And I've been on the defense side of that table when something like that has happened from a prosecutor and ended up in handcuffs and nearly held in contempt, because you have to zealously advocate for your client. When someone is trying to sneak in information and evidence to convict your client, that is what you do. And I think the judge did the right thing.
And Elliot, but it seems like some on MSNBC would tell you that the reason that happened is, again, it's race-based, it's unfair. This is just another example of how horrible this judge is.
Well, Dan, I noticed you didn't play the clip today when the defense attorney tried the exact same thing. The judge did not yell at him, because that also happened. Right? I noticed that
it wasn't the exact same thing.
It was the same thing. The defense tried to get in evidence that the judge had said was excluded, and the judge said, hey, that's excluded. He was very nice about it. Didn't have to go off yelling at them. You also didn't play the clip where Kyle Rittenhouse opened the door to that testimony by talking about his post.
Yeah, but that's not the point. When you open the door, you have to then go to the judge and say, Judge, they've opened the door. I now want to bring in this additional evidence. That's the way it happens. You know that.
That is what I would have done. I do agree fundamentally that it was a mistake by the prosecutor to try to do it in the way that he did it. I think that it was a mistake. Why I'm reacting to is the excoriation and the yelling at the prosecutor, because that's not the only time he's yelled at the prosecutor. Hasn't yelled at the defense once. Because
the prosecutor's getting desperate. The prosecutor's getting desperate here.
The prosecutor is getting desperate because they're not being allowed to put on their case. Like, you want to make this about whether or not the prosecution is good or bad. And what I'm trying to get you to see is what this judge has been doing in their totality.
And I'm trying to get you to see, and I'm trying to get you to see that the evidence here, the evidence that's actually been presented, has been a problem. And you keep focusing on the judge's rulings, and I'm saying
because the judge's rulings have all been biased for Kyle Rittenhouse.
I got it.
Look, we all agree.
We all agree
that Kyle Rittenhouse is due the presumption of innocence, right? That he's due the presumption, right? But the judge ain't. There is no reason why I have to presume that the judge is acting fairly when every
let me let Robert get in a final word.
Rittenhouse.
Robert, final word.
The problem is the prosecution has not presented a clear theory of the case. What exactly are you trying to prove? Are you trying to prove that Kyle Rittenhouse did not have the right to avail himself of self-defense? Then that's one standard. Are you trying to argue that he did not execute self-defense? That's a very separate standard. And I think because they do not have a clear standard, they started getting desperate and clawing and grasping at strings, and that's what got them excoriated. So I still think the defense has the burden of the affirmative defense of self-defense, and that has not been proven either. So this is going to come down to the closing arguments.
Elie Mystal and Robert Patillo. Good conversation. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dan.
Tonight, America divided by Kyle Rittenhouse breaking down on the witness stand. Was it raw emotion or crocodile tears? The media response surely depends on which network you were watching. Up next. Time now for our Mediaite Moments, where we check in on the day's bias, buzz, and bull in the world of cable news and beyond. America has been riveted by the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse and the question of whether his actions were truly self-defense or just vigilante justice. The case has been going poorly for the prosecution. But the thing that so many have been fascinated by is this moment.
There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
Was Rittenhouse legitimately showing raw emotion or just putting on an act? So many watching the exact same moment and drawing such different conclusions about it. Those who want to see him convicted are convinced it was all fake.
This whole thing of, the whole breaking down and dry heaving in court, making himself the victim and sort of making himself seem more innocent.
Joy, today the jurors saw what must be the greatest performance of Kyle Rittenhouse's life.
He showed emotion yesterday, but he didn't seem remorseful to me.
And I think that's why you saw the theatrics and the crocodile tears that we saw.
That acting job of the crying, I can't even look at it.
Well, this is
that is one of the worst acting jobs I've ever seen.
And it wasn't just the news pundits. LeBron James got in the act, tweeting, "What tears? I didn't see one. Man, knock it off. That boy ate some lemon heads before walking into court." Merriam-Webster's tweeted out a clear troll effort that read, "The term crocodile tears, a superficial display of anguish, comes from a medieval belief that crocodiles shed tears of sadness when killing their prey." I learned something new, but Merriam-Webster's dictionary is trolling now? But of course, many others saw it as authentic and sympathetic.
It looked like Kyle was having what anyone would describe as a breakdown, a panic attack, whatever way you want to describe it.
He was a police explorer. He was some kind of fireman cadet. He was a good kid.
that he'd gone to help protect businesses, and rioting and chaos playing out in the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin.
So it led to vigilante justice. This fact, his teenager went down to try to protect businesses.
He is a unbelievably strong young man.
That's a good kid. That is the kind of kid who can grow up and have a moral core.
So this guy is either faking his emotion to fool the jury, or he's a good kid with a moral core. It is our divided nation and media in a nutshell. That's our wrap of the day's Media Bias, Buzz, and the Bull. Coming up, the first civil lawsuit has been filed in connection with the shooting on the set of Rust. Alec Baldwin is a defendant, but the plaintiff is not who you might expect. His lawyer's going to come next. The first lawsuit has been filed in the fatal shooting on the set of the Alec Baldwin film Rust. It has not been brought by the husband of Helena Hutchins, who was shot to death. It has not been brought by director Joel Souza, who was wounded in the shooting. No, instead, the suit was brought by Serge Svetnoy. It's a name we haven't heard much on this story until now, and there's a reason for that. because he wasn't really injured. Svetnoy was the gaffer on the movie. He wrote a lengthy Facebook post about the tragic incident on October 24th, where he described the emotional final moments of Halyna Hutchins' life and blasted the negligence and unprofessionalism on the set. At a news conference yesterday in Los Angeles, Svetnoy and his attorney, Gary Dordick, explained why they filed the suit.
What a terrible tragedy and injustice when a person loses her life on film set while making art.
This lawsuit is not about his desire to make money at all. This lawsuit is to bring awareness to a problem and to prevent it in the future. This lawsuit is to make these kinds of unsafe conditions that happen too much on movie sets stop now.
Halls and armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed are all named in the lawsuit among roughly 24 defendants. But for any lawsuit, you need damages, and Svetnoy alleges that he suffered injury when the bullet narrowly missed him. The suit says, quote, he felt a strange and terrifying whoosh of what felt like pressurized air from his right. He felt what he believed was gunpowder and other residual materials from the gun directly strike the right side of his face and scratch the lenses of the eyeglasses he was wearing. Svetnoy is also suing for severe emotional distress. As he notes in the lawsuit, he says he held Halyna Hutchins as she was dying. Joining us now to discuss is Gary Dordick. He's the attorney for Serge Svetnoy. Gary, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. I have to say, though, as I read the lawsuit and read the entirety of it, I was a little confused because I get that there will be lawsuits and people will be held accountable for the negligence on the set. They should be. But why would you encourage this client to sue when the damage he suffered was basically a scratched eyeglass lens? It seems to me there are many other more valid and worthy plaintiffs than your client who's filed the first lawsuit here.
Well, I didn't encourage him to file a lawsuit. He retained my services because he knows that I fight for people like him that have been injured. To say he wasn't injured is not accurate at all. You're discounting that emotional distress is a real injury, and that's just simply not so.
So the fact that he was, look, it's obviously an upsetting thing, but I guess my point is, you said at the press conference yesterday that you were doing this to ensure that there'd be more safety on sets around the country, and that very often is the purpose of civil lawsuits, is to prevent things like this from happening again. And yet I come back to the fact that it doesn't seem to me that this is the plaintiff to do it. Some guy who's saying that his eyeglass was scratched and he got very upset at everything that happened. That's not damages. I mean, this just feels like it's on the fringe of being a frivolous lawsuit.
Well, again, you're taking the position that emotional distress damages are nothing and worthless, and that somebody who claims severe emotional distress has no claim, no real injury. You're focusing on scratched glasses, but perhaps focus on his dear good friend of many years, has a bullet in her. She's bleeding in his arms, bleeding on his hands, and he holds her while she lies dying, talking to her, trying to keep her alive, trying to keep her with and save her life where she later dies. That damage is compensable in California, but as I said, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so every very good friend of someone who dies based on negligence then should be filing lawsuits based on that because of the emotional distress to them of the negligence that led to somebody else's death. I mean, you see where I'm going with this. I'm concerned that this is the kind of lawsuit, particularly because it's the first lawsuit that's filed in connection with this case, that this is the wrong one, that it sends the wrong message, and that the people who should be filing the first lawsuits here should be the people who were both injured physically and suffered emotional distress, which can lead to damages. Instead, what you have here is a guy whose eyeglasses were shattered, who was obviously very upset by what happened, but that just doesn't seem to me to be a very strong damages case, and certainly isn't going to be the one that's going to clear up any safety issues that are happening on sets around America.
Well, I disagree with several things you said, but the law provides who can recover for negligent infliction of emotional distress. There's specific guidelines, like being within the zone of danger. Basically, for this type of loss, there's three people that can sue: 3 people. 2 of them, yes, were struck by bullets, and those 2 have better or stronger damages cases. I don't disagree with that. But I do disagree with the premise that emotional distress is nothing. So there's 3 people that can sue. Mr. Tsvetnoy is one of the 3 that was in the zone of danger, had a close relationship, suffered some physical injury and emotional distress. So the law gives him the right to sue. The emotional distress is significant, and he's hired me. And I've gone after all the corporations in the past. I've gone against production companies in the past. And whether his damages are large or small, I intend to go after him.
All right. Well, look, and I get it. It's a high-profile case. I understand why you'd take it. But let me focus on the Alec Baldwin piece of this. You're suing Alec Baldwin in the suit, claiming that he owed the duty to the plaintiff and other crew members on the set to double-check. I've now talked to 3 armorers who work on all of the top movie sets. All of them have said to me that the actor is not expected, as a matter of due course, to double-check when they are handed a weapon. They say, hey, it's great if they do, but the notion that that's an expectation, all of them have said, just simply isn't the case.
Well, I mean, you picked 3 people, you talked to them. I don't know what was said, and I don't know what questions were asked other than what you're saying. But I think if you brought in your the group of people you ask and talk to and say, would you take a real gun and point it at somebody, point it at them and pull the trigger, the answer is going to be no. Nobody reasonable would take a gun because somebody told them, hey, that gun's okay. Go ahead and take a real gun, point it at a human being, pull the trigger, and then when a bullet goes off, you say, oh, well, that guy told me it was okay. That makes no sense at all. I mean, does that sound reasonable to you?
Right.
Because somebody told you?
It makes no sense if you're off a movie set. But again, I learned this from talking to the people who are on movie sets, and you tell me you've been involved in lawsuits against them before, so you should know that what I'm saying is absolutely true, that the actor is not expected to double-check. And look, I don't want to defend Alec Baldwin. I think he's in big trouble as the producer of this film. I think he's going to get sued in legitimate lawsuits, and he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But I guess I'm just concerned about this one, and I give you the final word, Mr. Dordick.
Well, I would say that if you continually insist or suggest that emotional distress are not real damages, take a look around at people that suffer PTSD in our society. There's significant harm. I have clients that break bones and have no problems. I have a lot of physical injuries that heal 100%. Emotional distress is a very real, very significant injury, and don't lose track of the fact that we're not in it for the money. I intend to bring about a change. Mr. Tsvetnoy is helping me, and between us, we will bring about a change. You seem doubtful of that, but I'm telling you, it's not about
the change
money,
is going to occur.
And with him
the change
and
is
me,
going to
the
occur.
change will come.
The change is going to occur. It's just not going to be because of you. But
I think so.
I appreciate it. Look, okay, fair enough.
Well,
but Gary Dordick,
I doubt that.
I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you.
I thank you.
Coming up, BLM activists threatening riots and bloodshed if Mayor-elect Eric Adams brings back a form of community policing. I'll talk to one of those advocates up next. Welcome back. One of the founders of New York City's Black Lives Matter movement has threatened violence in the streets if the mayor-elect Eric Adams brings back the NYPD's controversial anti-crime unit. The comments came following an impromptu and at times contentious meeting between members of Black Lives Matter Greater New York and the incoming mayor. The activists had been protesting in front of Brooklyn Borough Hall when they were invited in for a meeting with Adams. The meeting focused on Adams' push to revive the NYPD's plainclothes anti-crime unit, which was shut down in June of 2020 in the wake of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Though Adams found common ground with BLM activists on the campaign trail at times, the former NYPD captain has vowed to bring back the anti-crime unit as part of his public safety plans. The intensity was apparently kicked up a notch after the meeting was over. That's when Hawk Newsome, one of the founders and leaders of the city's BLM movement, threatened to take to the streets with violence if the unit is brought back. The anti-crime unit was part of a policing model that critics said pitted officers against the communities they served. When announcing the decision to dissolve the anti-crime unit, NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea said at the time the move was made after what he called a disproportionate number of high-profile incidents involving the unit's plainclothes officers. But Adams isn't talking about bringing back the same kind of policing that led to the high-profile death, for example, of Eric Garner and others. Adams says he wants to refocus the anti-crime unit into a gun violence prevention unit and aimed at taking illegal guns off the streets. Adams isn't talking about reviving stop and frisk. He says the new anti-crime unit would undergo more training, wear body cameras, and use what he calls precision policing tactics. Now, my take on this is regardless of whether you agree with the mayor-elect or BLM about this type of policing, I can't see how threatening violence on the streets helps their cause, and I certainly don't see how the leaders of the New York's BLM movement think it's the best way to keep Adams from following through with his promise to bring back the unit. Joining us now is Chivona Newsome, sister of Hawk Newsome and a co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York. She also attended last night's meeting with New York's mayor-elect. Thank you very much for joining us. I have to appreciate it. I have to ask you, do you disagree with what I just said about the tactics and threatening violence?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me. No, I do not disagree. We are foundational Black Americans, and that is the American way. And let's be crystal clear. Black Lives Matter, Greater New York, or any other social justice org, when George Floyd died, when he was murdered, when we watched that horrific 8-minute-long film, America took to the streets, Americans took to the streets, and the world took to the streets. And this will happen if he brings back an anti-crime unit, if he keeps this old-fashioned way of policing going.
So you are again standing by then this notion that you are threatening violence again, riots, going back to the streets. And again, I'm not talking about protests. I'm talking about violence and riots, et cetera. If the mayor maintains his campaign promise that he's been talking about for months now about bringing the anti-crime unit back in the way that he's describing, then you are promising violence on the streets.
Eric Adams is flip-flopping. His record in the Senate is unimpressive. The borough where
but
he's
the mayor-elect. Whether you like him or not, he's the mayor-elect now. I mean, he's the guy you got.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, unfortunately, it was between him and a clown named Curtis Sliwa. What options did people have? There's homelessness and there's crime because there's poverty.
I understand,
the same way
I don't want to talk about other issues.
The same
I want to talk
way
about this.
I'm getting to the point. I actually am. You asked me a question. There are ways to solve gun violence. There's ways to solve crimes. We actually laid out a plan with legislation, but that's not clickbait. We told Eric Adams how to solve the problem of crime in New York City, and that is poverty. Places that have the highest rates of unemployment have the highest rates of murder. But Eric Adams does not have a plan. So how do you expect us to respond?
So all right. So first of all, I would think you'd agree that you don't get to dictate what the policy is of New York, right? In terms of what the anti-crime policy.
Because America is
I didn't know that you were elected as mayor.
And by the people. Actually, the Constitution empowers me to have this attitude. It's the American way.
No,
and
you can
Martin
have a
Luther
view.
King said that riots are the cries of the unheard.
Okay, so wait. So two separate issues. One is that you seem to think that you get to dictate what the policy is in New York for what the anti-crime policy is.
Actually,
and
I
number
have.
Two,
7 of the last laws I've written,
fine.
And my organization has come up with.
As long as you admit.
I've actually passed more laws than Eric Adams in the last year.
So now we know that you are in charge of the anti-crime policy in New York, not Eric Adams. That's number one. And number two
I'm not taking credit for that. Like right now, you're sensationalizing. You're a brilliant man, Dan.
No.
It's like, come on.
Like,
do you hear the point you're making?
Let me finish the second point, and then I'll let you respond.
I'm claiming to be in charge of anti-crime.
Let me just make my second point. You just told me that. You just told me that. And the second point is that you are
the people are in charge. The people dictate policies.
I got it.
Politicians work for.
But when
answer my question.
Who elected Eric Adams, not you. You weren't elected. I hate to tell you this, but you weren't elected. He was, right? Am I wrong on that?
I'm happy he was. And a mayor should pass laws. As you see, when we took to the streets last year, how many laws came out of that? Mayor Bill de Blasio came out of it. The anti-crime unit was disbanded after that. So clearly, when Americans, I think you guys forget that Black people are Americans. When Americans take to the street
when you say
and
you
their
guys,
voices are heard,
when you say you guys, you mean
and they make laws.
Right. You say you guys, you mean a white guy? Is that what you mean by you guys? Is that what you mean by that?
Actually, I wasn't screaming and calling you a white person. I'm not sure why you're argumentative. I don't often watch your show.
No, it's not
but
that
I
I'm
guess
just trying
that's
to
the tone you're taking.
No, but I'm
because
trying to
I don't feel
figure
like
out,
you want to
Shivona.
hear me. What you're trying to get is
Look,
clickbait,
I'm
and
trying
I'm
to
not
talk
giving
about
you that.
the threat of violence. I'm talking about the threat of violence, right? That made me nervous. It made me uncomfortable. I said at the beginning of the segment,
very uncomfortable.
no matter
The same way you feel about my statements is how I feel about an anti-crime unit. Let's be crystal clear. The murder of Eric Gardner was by the anti-crime unit.
Right,
the murder
but he's
of
talked
Sean
about
Bell
he's going to
was by
change the anti-crime unit. It's
Amadou
not the
Diallo
same
was by
anti-crime
the
unit.
anti-crime unit.
Right,
Yes,
but you're
it
not
was.
listening
It's
to
the
him.
most
You're not
notorious
listening to Adams.
murderers.
You're just not listening. You're not listening to him, not me.
You're
You're not
the same
listening to
way
him.
Adams did. I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm not allowed to be a leader. I'm not allowed to fight for the people. I'm a revolutionary. I don't side with the Dems, and I don't sound with the GOP.
Look,
yeah,
I
it didn't sound like you respected it when you said I was dictating the laws. When the power
because you
belongs
told
to
me
the
you were
people.
making the laws.
That's what I'm.
And more importantly,
because power belongs to the people. It's
right.
American.
I know, but you're not the only person. You're not the only person who lives there. And when you threaten violence, it's not the way you should do it. And you know that. I'll give you the final word.
The anti-crime unit is dangerous and hazardous to black people. You have suburban men riding around in streetwear in unmarked cars, violating the Fourth Amendment with illegal search and seizures. Eric Adams is changing the names of policies. It's not going to happen, and it's my right as an American to uprise.
You get the final word, Chivona Newsome. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
I appreciate it.
Likewise.
Coming up. A SWAT team surrounds a house. The armed man inside refuses to come out and firing at police. Sean Six Larkin is here to talk us through the frightening standoff coming up. Time for our police cam segment showing the dangers officers face every day around the country. The SWAT team in Jacksonville, Florida was called as police tried to arrest a suspect, Abel Navarro, on warrants for kidnapping and armed robbery.
We have a warrant for your arrest. You need to come outside with nothing in your hands and your hands in the air.
Yeah. Navarro eventually came to the front door, but not to lay down his weapon.
Come outside with your hands up and nothing in your hands. I see you at the front door cracked open. Open the door. Come outside with your hands up and nothing in your
Yes, sir.
hands.
He said he had the hostage. Oh, great. He says he's got a hostage. That's his girlfriend.
The suspect eventually let his girlfriend leave. She was able to crawl to safety with cover from police.
You're doing great. Keep crawling. You're fine. Send her back here to me. I don't have a rifle. You're doing fine. You sure? Okay. He can do it. Yeah, I'll do it. You keep your rifle up, bro. Keep coming, sweetie. Come on. You're doing great. You're doing fine. You're good. I know. We're here to help you. We're not going to hurt you. Keep coming. You're doing great. Come on. You got to keep coming. Come on, sweetie. Just keep coming. You're doing great. Over here. Over here. You got to come to us. To our voice over here. All right, now stand up. Stand up and walk. Keep your hands up. Come over here to me. 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 Just walk. There you go. All right, come here.
What's happening?
Your boyfriend's shooting at us. Hey, how many people are inside?
You're fine. You're fine. I'm scared.
You're fine. You're okay.
As police were checking on the woman, Navarro, who was still armed, tried to make a run for it.
Hey, coming out the window! Coming out the window! Hold up! Hands! 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 Hands up! Get on the ground! He's reaching! Hey, let's go! He's reaching! Hey, coming out the window! Coming out the Delta! Coming out the window! Hands! 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 Hands up! Get on the ground!
He's down, he's flopping around. I can see his feet.
We saw body cam video from the two officers who fired at the suspect, including one officer in the SWAT truck. Navarro jumped out of a window trying to run behind his neighbor's home. When officers shot him, Navarro survived and was taken to the hospital, then charged with attempted murder of a police officer. The woman who escaped from the home was not hurt, nor were any of the officers. Joining us now, Sean Sticks Larkin, retired Tulsa police lieutenant. Sticks, when you watch that, what sticks out to you most?
Obviously the officers came to this scene prepared. They were going to execute an arrest warrant, so they had intel on this guy. They knew what he was wanted for, a violent crime. They showed up with their Bearcat, their armored vehicle. They had all of their tools, their equipment with them, so they could be prepared for the suspect doing exactly as he did.
And you heard them explaining, at least some of them explaining, why they fired their weapons, right?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously he had shot at officers, I think, 3 different times throughout this incident. He was wanted for a violent crime. Tennessee v. Gardner, Supreme Court case from 1985, basically talks about using deadly force against a fleeing felon. It's very restricted on when we can do it. This right here was that exact type of scenario. Officers had probable cause to believe this guy posed a threat. 2 officers, 2 others, should he have fled, they had to stop them, which they, in fact, did do.
And they were able to keep that woman who was in that home safe by getting her to crawl out of there as well, along with some neighbors who were apparently in the neighborhood as well.
They did. Throughout you watch this entire video, once it ends, the officers actually do go and start talking to neighbors to make sure that they're okay. Let them know, hey, we're going to have to use you as a witness for what they have seen or possibly heard out there.
All right. Sean Sticks Larkin, thank you very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Want to give a quick shout out to our vets. This is Veterans Day. I think it's an important day to remember. It's an important day to pause, to say thank you, to say we appreciate you, to say you're doing the work for us and you're doing the work for the country. So thank you to our vets on this Veterans Day. I'm thinking about you. We're thinking about you. We appreciate you. That does it for tonight. News Nation Prime starts right now. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.